Yeah. Oh, we did not report the amendment? I thought we did. We did the title, and didn't I say it was considered as read?
I don't think, okay.
We did.
I thought you,
We did. And Mr. Inslee is now recognized for 5 minutes in support of his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a disappointing day because this really is gutting a major part of the Clean Air Act. And if people disagree with that, they need to take it up with the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court has said under the Clean Air Act there's a requirement to protect human health associated with these gases. And this essentially makes it illegal to enforce the Clean Air Act. And it's disappointing because this whole thing started under Republican President Richard Nixon, enforced by EPA William Ruckelshaus, and I was in Seattle. But now we're really having a Republican war on science, and there are casualties on this war on science, and hundreds of thousands of casualties. In fact, there are 9 million U.S. children in the U.S. today who have been diagnosed with asthma at some point in their childhood. So there are 9 million potential casualties of this Republican war on science. This amendment would attempt to reduce those collateral damage by essentially saying that this act would not go into effect unless there is a finding that this will not increase the incidence of asthma in children. Now, unfortunately, we know that this will. We know this through unassailable, unequivocal consensus science. And I want to just point something out. There is not one single peer-reviewed scientific paper that says other than that human health associated with asthma will be aggravated as a result of this. And I think that's telling. From the National Academies of Science, which found that climate change is occurring and that it poses significant risks, from the EPA, to the American Public Health Association, which found specifically that public health effects of climate change include increasing likelihood of more frequent intense heat waves, and intense heat waves are associated unequivocally with increasing ground level ozone. According to the Centers for Disease Control, quote, heat also increases ground level ozone concentrations, causing direct lung injury and increasing the severity of respiratory diseases such as asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, 9 million children is a statistic, but one story is a tragedy. I just ran into a woman in a hall just before we broke. Her son Lucas is 2.5 years of age, Lucas Bergman of Seattle, Washington. He was diagnosed at 14 months with asthma. Within the last several months, he's been treated in the emergency room 3 times, always during the weekend. Lucas Bergman is a collateral damage casualty of this war on science. And I don't think we should allow it to stand.
Will the gentleman yield?
Briefly.
Is the gentleman suggesting that climate change is leading to this child's asthma? I mean, this very child?
I am not suggesting, I am saying categorically, conclusively, without scientific uncertainty of any degree, that climate change gases will accelerate and aggravate the incidence of childhood asthma.
If
and
one
you cannot find, let me finish, you cannot find one single peer-reviewed journal that will say to the contrary. Now, you can get people that are working with oil companies to blog all you want, but there isn't one established scientific body in the world today that says otherwise. Now, this is kind of seemingly a harsh thing to say. I like my Republican friends. They're colleagues. I respect them. But you can't run from the fact that by gutting the Clean Air Act, you make childhood asthma more frequent and more aggravated. And the reason is, if you don't understand the science, is that heat increases ground level ozone. And ozone aggravates childhood asthma. And if you've ever seen a kid trying to breathe, maybe you'd feel about this the way I do. I was given a speech the other day, and one of my staff started to choke on a piece of meat. And I can tell you that the look in a person's eyes who has trouble breathing makes you suggest that this is not such a good bill. And I am trying to reduce those casualties by this provision, which is very specific. And by the way, there's another war on science. There's another casualty in the war on science, and that's the truth. To trot out these things, these phony baloney polls out of Scientific American that have been specifically essentially repudiated by the editors of the own magazine is the kind of baloney we have to deal with. And I just look forward to the times where we can work in a bipartisan fashion based on science, and the science of kids' health is real clear here. And before I yield, I'll give you that lady's phone number. You call the mother up of this kid, and you explain to him why your vote's a good idea. I'll yield.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Just to
for 5 minutes.
speak against the amendment, you know, my colleague from Washington State can get very impassioned, but the fact is that nothing in EPA's record regarding the push to regulate global warming gases supports this claim. In fact, the term asthma is mentioned only once in the endangerment finding in the context of particulate matter emissions from potential wildfires. Let me say that again. The term asthma is mentioned only once in the endangerment finding, and only with regard to wildfires, which even the EPA says